through my husband who will come, been very faithful to stay with me. My son has, between them and my other family members, they've just supported me so much. And the association, I can't be more grateful. I just, what you've done for me over the years here has been absolutely phenomenal. So, the little story that I have is interesting only because the Silent Angel Award is going to be going to my daughter-in-law, who married my son, who was struck by lightning and probably has a brain injury. Because he uses it as an excuse all the time. Well, anyway, I did write something, so it's a little more coherent. The Silent Angel Award recognizes those who make it possible for others to be in the forefront of the association's activities. The story of my daughter-in-law, Lisa Warner, truly shows that God's miracles are real. Lisa survived 2 ruptured brain aneurysms, one while she was driving, and has dedicated herself since then to supporting other TBI survivors. Lisa has never felt sorry for herself. Instead, she has used what she has learned to help individuals with brain injury to thrive, like she has, and find that silver lining. She is active in Robin Cohen's support group, volunteers at the library, and takes advantage of every opportunity to get out the word about brain injury. Lisa even has a blog. Not entirely sure what that is, but she uses it to educate public about brain injury and encourages others. Many of her extended family members are psychologists and teachers, and with Lisa's influence, she has helped them to be more understanding in their dealings with individuals with brain injury. Lisa is much more than my daughter-in-law. As a TBI survivor myself, I see her as an inspiration, not just for me, but for so many others like her and like me. Lisa is truly a silent angel.
To describe how honored I was, so I just left it at thank you. And I wanted to thank everyone at who put this conference together. I've looked forward to it every year since my injury. For 2 whole days, I get to be in a room full of people who have been there and truly understand what living with a brain injury is all about. What an incredible blessing. Thank you to the Brain Injury Association for making this possible every year. Now, I'd like to briefly share my story with you. February 1st, 2005 was a cold and snowy day. I reported to my first job feeling fine and was driving to my second one when a brain aneurysm in my right middle cerebral artery burst, instantly filling my head with blood. I passed out and apparently drove off the road and over a 60-foot bank, missing every tree and not even rolling my Jeep Cherokee. Someone in a blue pickup truck saw fresh tracks in the snow, found me unconscious, called 911, then left the scene of the accident when the police responded. I was rushed to Albany Medical Center and my husband Nate was contacted. When he arrived at the hospital, doctors told him to say goodbye. There is very little hope of my survival. At that point, my left side was completely paralyzed and my head was still full of blood. When it looked like I might live after the clipping surgery, Nate was then told that he may want to check into nursing home facilities because the reality was I would most likely be a vegetable. When I finally woke up, I thought it was 2002. It was really 2005. But I could speak and I recognized Nate and my family. When I was medically stable, I was taken to a Sunnyview Rehabilitation Hospital since I still had no use of my left hand and had very poor balance. About a week after being released from Sunnyview, I had a very stiff neck, and Nate says I looked up at him and told him my head hurt. He immediately put me in my Jeep and headed to Albany Medical Center, only 4.6 miles away. By the time we got there, I couldn't walk on my own. Scans showed an aneurysm at the base of my first one had ruptured. My artery was in such bad condition that my artery was in such bad condition after my first rupture, the doctors were unable to check for any other weak spots, which would cause further, possibly massive damage to my brain. So the second aneurysm was coiled to stop the bleeding and to avoid 2 craniotomies in a month's time. The bleeding was stopped and a shunt was placed to relieve all the pressure in my brain, because my ventricles weren't working due to all the bleeding. After the shunt was placed, I regained some of the use of my left hand. It was now moving again, and I would just have to work on improving my fine motor skills. Months after being released from the hospital, doctors cleared me to fly to Oklahoma for my sister's wedding. After returning from the wedding, I had a 6-month checkup with the doctors, and they had found that the second coiled aneurysm was growing again. It was now discovered that due to the lack of blood through my arteries after the first rupture, I had probably also suffered a stroke. So after fixing this growing of giant aneurysm, doctors would have to perform a bypass around the clipped vessel to give me enough blood to feed my poor little brain. Since the vessels in my arms and legs appear too small, neurosurgeons decided to use part of my temporal artery, that's in your head, for the bypass. After 23 hours, yes, 23 hours of surgery, the aneurysm was clipped and the bypass was working. The surgery was so risky, I had honestly prepared for not waking up. My bypass has since shut down, and in another unexplainable way, my cleft artery expanded enough to let the proper amount of blood through it. The bypass has now reopened, which doctors also say never happens after a vessel shuts down. By the way, if you do the math, my chances of surviving 2 ruptures was 0.1%. I really have very few memories of the whole year, and I only know the story as it has been told to me. But my purpose is clear. By the grace of God, I'm supposed to be here. My recovery story is probably much like each one of you here today. It is slow and frustrating trying to relearn things you used to know or could even do without thinking. There isn't time to talk about all the times I messed up a sequence or just couldn't understand or process information presented to me, leaving me confused and exhausted. Oh, and the fatigue, the constant, relentless fatigue. I know you all understand without explanation. My faith has carried me through, along with the love and support of an amazing husband, family, and friends. A good friend once told me, "Lisa, no matter how many times you fail, you are not a failure." I don't know about you, but sometimes I need to hear that from time to time. Finally, in the spirit of this conference, I wanted to share what I consider to make it all worth every painstaking minute of recovery. The silver lining, if you will, are all the moments in life that I didn't have to miss out on. Thank you again for this award. I've shared my story with you as an encouragement to those with brain injuries, and I hope to continue educating others on this important issue. Thank you.
Of those who make it possible for others to be in the forefront of the association's activities. Tammy Garland